TSN, one of your colleagues, Pierre LeBrun on Insider Trading. I guess is that the segment yesterday with Dregs and the boys, talking about how that's just that. Could this impact the Flames and Rasmus Anderson?
What I am hearing is that the Calgary Flames suddenly got more calls on Rasmus Anderson after the Quinn Hughes trade, and that's not surprising. There aren't going to be that many top four defensemen moving between now and the March 6th trade deadline. What is going to be interesting is how the Flames handle that potential trade. Do they move him as a traditional rental, he's pending UFA, or do they involve the agent Claude Lemieux into a potential sign and trade to get more value in a trade? And one thing I should mention, that among the teams that have circled back on Rasmus Anderson is the Toronto Maple Leafs. We know the Leafs tried to trade for Anderson last year at the deadline. And why I mentioned Toronto is that my understanding is that the Leafs would be one of those teams that perhaps Anderson would consider extending with if, in fact, a trade would work out between those two teams.
All right, so there you go. That's courtesy, obviously, of TSN, where we find the guys doing great work. I'll let you jump right in to just thoughts on that.
Listen, I always ask when you're trading for Rasmus Anderson, that's the topic. I would ask, what did the Toronto Maple Leafs have that Calgary could covet? I believe their first rounder is at 28. That's what their nearest first rounder, which is fine. It's currency, but it's a couple years down the road. You got to kick the can down the road. They've got Danforth, the defenseman.
I guess for me, Noodles, and because we have had this conversation, and that hasn't really changed what the Leafs have, and if they're, I guess,
Cowan Danforth first.
For Pierre, like some maybe now the calls are spiking a bit to the Flames. Were there a lot of teams? Like, were there some teams that were in this Quinn Hughes sweepstakes, if you were, that are now, okay, well, now we do pivot. They're two very different players, obviously, and it's a different scenario, but I was a little surprised that, interesting, that there would have been at least a number of teams that would now be moving on and getting potentially aggressive with the Hughes trade done.
I think you have to, once Quinn Hughes, whether he was in play or not, and the length of time I'm not, sure of, but if you're a manager, you should be fired if you didn't check to see if he's available for your organization.
Right.
So, if the call goes out or the text in the GM text chain goes, listening, Quinn Hughes potential, let me know. Every team, Stan Bowman's got a call, like anybody, like McFarland from Colorado's got a call just to see what the temperature is for that player. So I think these GMs would look at it. It might not be a fit for their organization, or they don't have the currency for it, but you go, okay, if that's the marketplace for Quinn Hughes. And I thought Billy Guerin was extremely aggressive. I'm sure you watched his media where he said, that was our first offer. We wanted to be serious and show them that they were serious. And I almost think that Quinn Hughes' comment was a backhanded comment at New Jersey.
Yeah, totally.
So anyway, getting back to Rasmus, I don't know if they direct correlate, but what it does is it percolates. These are big trades and they're able to happen. So if you're in on a player, don't sit on your hands. Get moving. To me, be more urgent, because there might be another taker out there for Rasmus that you don't realize you're in. And all of a sudden you lose out on him because you're not proactive with it. That's my point.
So does that go back to everyone? Well, we got to wait till the trade deadline because that's when you maximize. And I've always been like, well, it doesn't really make sense to me all the time. It's when the deals get made, because you can't wait till after. Is it always the best deal, or was that deal available in December? You know what I mean? We're always like, oh, we got to wait till the trade deadline to get the best return. Is that the way it really is, or is that just when the deals get done?
I think there's pressure points throughout things, Rhett. And I remember just being on the other side of the curtain and having discussions, or at least discussion's the wrong word, listening in to a lot smarter people than me have these discussions as to, when is the point? When, I think deals come to fruition, and I can speak out of turn there because I know Daryl's talked about this. I remember when he got Rennie Bork for a second out of Chicago. And that was I believe, a couple years in the making, where Daryl had made that offer and just said, if you're ever going to move away from him, call me because I've got a second rounder for you. Something like that. It was like that type of like groundwork, but like we're not pursuing it every day, but just if you ever move away from a player, we covet him. I think you could check to see if it was a second for Rennie, but something like that. I remember the conversation and that type of stuff. So these conversations have all been had. They don't just start the next day after Quinn Hughes. But what I'm coming back to, Rhett, is the pressure point. Maybe I think there's levels where it heats up and goes, okay, well, like we should get more serious about this. Or if the player is ready or willing to waive or get on board, maybe there is a pressure point that fits in his schedule or fits in our schedule. I don't know how long that Jari deal, I'll give you an example, for Stuart Skinner was in the works. But there was a pressure point at some point where they was like, okay, now let's do it. Yeah. And so same thing with Rasmus. At some point, Connie's going to have to go, this is the best we're going to do. And that's why we're going to make this deal. That's up to Connie and his management to figure out where that pressure point is, Rhett.
And some teams will put a priority on getting a guy earlier so you can get into the room, into the systems. It's not just 10 games until the playoffs or whatever the number would be from March 6th to mid-April. You also have other teams that say, oh, shoot, we're really up against a cap. If we can let another 2 months of salary run off, that prorated number that comes in is easier to handle. I always talk about the injury thing. Like, there's not going to be less than 0 injuries. There's going to be more than 0 between now and the deadline. But you also have the standings, to your point, right? Like, some teams that would be buyers now might be sellers in 2 months.
Well, you talk about Dallas. How long did you know what life is like without Heiskanen, because he was injured for a chunk there last year. And you're watching those around you bolster or go out. They're on incredible runs.
Yeah. Well, and their right side's awful.
Do you want to be there in the end? Do you? Well, like, you don't need to wait to know that it would be a great piece to add.
Yeah,
it would be, because you're right. Their right side is something that would need a Rasmus Anderson. Put it that way.
Yeah.
I think
all
it was Pushkin. Is that where?
Oh. And that's this kind of salary you take back. The big wild card with Dallas is Seguin done for the year? Because if he is, you get $9.5 million, and if you only shut him down, say till the end of the regular season, you get half the relief, and you have to be cap compliant in the playoffs this year. So if you're waving goodbye to Seguin for the whole season, Dallas really moves up my board. But I still see the same issues that I do there with Toronto. It's just like they've given up a lot of assets when they added Mikko Rantanen. Like, what is the massive piece they can dangle to the Flames to get Rasmus?
I don't know. I'm thinking of the young players just off the top of my head. I did their game a couple of weeks ago, like Maverick Bourque.
It's one.
But like, you're not moving Wyatt Johnston.
No,
like,
he's already locked in. Like,
yeah, but he's part, like, Dallas is not going to take live players off their roster. They're trying to get better. They're not going to weaken themselves to strengthen another spot. That's where, again, I'm sure, I'm not going to speak out of turn, but I guarantee you, Connie has probably had all of his pro scouts tracking, name me a team, Dallas, LA, Toronto, all of that, going, what do they have in the minors? What do they have? Like, who's the up and coming, stud that they can grab, who's getting a little seasoning in the AHL? That's the type of stuff that or is it a draft pick that's in junior? That's a first rounder because I think that's the biggest thing with Connie is he's building assets. He doesn't need a 27-year-old. He doesn't need Jason Roberts, or maybe Jason Robertson might move the needle. You know what I mean? Maybe that's a guy, but why would you trade Jason Robertson if you're Dallas? If maybe it's the cost of doing business.
Yeah, I don't know. That'll be an interesting one.
Does it ever come back to a point where the teams that would be interested in Rasmus Anderson, I'm playing it out as a silliness, really. If you can't get the return that you need for Rasmus, are you re-signing him? Like, if you talk about the Leafs and you're like, okay, so what's the best deal? The Danforth,
Cowan and a 28
and a 28 first? Are you like, okay, well,
they're not going to give up all three. Yeah.
I think you have.
What's the yes, no? And I know they don't want to pay Rasmus, but would Rasmus stay if he got his contract that he wants?
Yeah, if you give him 9, he'll stay. Is kind of the
right.
thing.
Okay, so,
but like the only way I could see, and it's not going to happen for playing fantasy GM, if you give Rasmus the money, but there's a no trade. Like, you have to be open to a trade. Like, but that will take the control away from Rasmus, and then you trade him to.
But I don't even think Rasmus would like. The no trade doesn't mean shit if both the team and the player want, right? Like, how many guys have said, I'm not going? It happens, but it's rare.
But if you have a no trade and you've got a 10-team no trade list, and the team that wants you is on that no trade list, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Like you can't go
get them to waive. They can waive it, but
there's a reason why that team is on that guy's no trade list. Like, that's the thing. Like, name me a team that would be on it. Like Buffalo's probably be on a lot of people's no trade list. So if Buffalo wanted Rasmus Anderson and he goes, well, I'm not going to Buffalo, I wouldn't extend, whatever. Doesn't matter. They could offer,
maybe you're also content with, you shouldn't be that desperate to get rid of him if you're, it's fantasy hockey, but this is what GMs in the NHL do, is play fantasy hockey. They go, what's Rasmus Anderson worth? Shop him around. I can't get, like, if Conroy sells Anderson for a first, like, you know what I mean? What's a bad deal for Anderson?
Less than a first.
But if that's the best deal that's being offered, what do? You have to sign him.
I understand that. But I do believe that there's enough, without knowing this, I believe there's enough interest in Anderson that you're going to get something really good. It's just
it doesn't have to be those three teams that we talked about.
It could be a team that we're not even thinking about.
But he's already got a no trade.
He's got 6 teams. So the extension becomes more the issue than the no trade. And that was what cropped up with LA. It wasn't a no trade to LA. It was, I'm not really comfortable signing an extension now. And I get it. He's coming off a bad year. The cap's skyrocketing. Why don't we just play it out? I don't want to commit, lock in now.
But think of the Eastern teams that.
What about Jersey? Because they thought they were adding a D, I bet.
Yeah. I think Jersey would be. I think you look at teams that are having good seasons, like a Boston or Detroit. Like, I don't know if there's any interest from those teams. But, like, maybe those teams out east that see a wide open East where there's parity beyond belief, and you need depth, or you need a player like that to help the power play or to help 5-on-5. Like, there is scenarios there. I don't know. I don't think Tampa could do it, but, like, man, Tampa's their D are banged up right now. Yeah. Like, I look at all these teams. You can make a case for Rasmus to go to 15 different teams, but what is the asking price? What's the fit? Does he want to extend? All of these types of things. I live in Toronto. I know that Toronto would love to have Rasmus Anderson because Troy Stetcher is their crown jewel right now.
Oh my God.
And I give him credit, man. He plays hard every night. He's averaged 22 minutes a night for them. And outside of scoring on himself, unfortunately, the other night against Edmonton, he's been really good. And that's not a slight on Stetcher, but if that is what you're like, this is a guy who's playing top 4 minutes. Rasmus, what could he do for the Toronto Maple Leafs? You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about.
So staying with Toronto, like, obviously Brad Treliving covets the player. They tried to add him last year. He's the one that, drafted, developed, and signed him multiple times in Calgary. I've heard, and we've all heard whispers, like, are Brad Treliving's Toronto Maple Leafs able to complete a transaction with Murray Edwards' Calgary Flames?
I think we all hear the Reddit forum, Twitter chatter, whatever. I think at the end of the day, business is business. And if you can make a good hockey trade, I think that's fake news. I think it's, okay. I don't believe that chatter. Put it that way. I believe that Craig Conroy has the ability to trade with anybody he wants in the NHL. Obviously, you run it up the chain. Donnie Maloney, you run it up to Murray Edwards, all of that, because there's big numbers involved. There's big money involved. But I don't know what that look for, whatever it is. But
we're on YouTube. They can see you.
My point being is, I believe Connie could trade with anybody to make his team better. And why wouldn't you? That's the way I feel.
Hey, buddies. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Also, if you could throw in a like and subscribe, it does help us out with what it is we are doing. And check out more at flamesnation.ca.